Hello everyone, this is Charlotte EAS704 and today I'm going to have an updated weather radio collection video. Since last time, which was in March, I went over all my radios and I'm going to do it again, and I've picked up 10 more since then. So, and had a couple new little features, that being one of them. Anyway, I'll get back to that in a second, but we're going to go over all my radios once again, and I'll show you all the new ones that I've gotten since. So we'll start over here next to my computer on this little table I have with the WX67. I got this one in, let's see, it was September of 2022, so it was last year. It was in September. It's a cool radio. It has it doesn't have a ton of features, but it goes off, it activates. It's a pretty common first alert. It's a fairly cheap one too. Has good reception, interesting siren.
72 at Columbia.
Decent reception, although the reception over here is not as good as it is, you know, on my dresser, on my table. It's not quite as good, but it's still fairly decent radio, I will have to admit. The next one here is the new one that I've gotten. It's the Radio Shack Pro 136, and it's basically a Uniden scanner branded as Radio Shack. I don't think Radio Shack made this, but it has the brains of a Uniden, pretty much.
Tuesday night, mostly clear. Lows in the upper 50s.
The siren sounds just like a WX100 or a BC370 CRS. So it has pretty much the same features. You have your FM bands, ham radio, air travel, as well as Marines, and a fire department and police department. So you can punch in all your numbers, and you know, it has a ton of really cool features, this thing. It's similar to the BC370 CRS in a couple ways. The other interesting thing is the siren is louder on this than the 370 CRS, but it's a really cool scanner. You know, I wanted one. It cost me about $50, which is pretty good for the amount of features you get. Anyway, so that's a new radio that I've got. Over here on my PC, yes, I'm monitoring the SPC right now, but this is the Radio Shack 12-093, or whatever you want to call it. No, it's not like the 993. It's 093. It's basically a 1050 hertz Radio Shack, and this is the siren it has on it. It's basically the same as the 12-260 right over there. So now the features, really, it really doesn't have much. Just the clock, the channel, the band, the weather band. That's about it. Not a lot to say about it. It has no same, and there's no real way to turn off the siren if it goes off unless you flip the switch in the back, and that's about it. But really, it's a cool little radio. Didn't cost me very much. They're rarer than 12-260s, but they're just they're not that good. You know, they're better ones, but it's a cool little collector's item for sure. You know? And it's a general purpose radio just to, you know, get you through the day if there's an alert. So cool little 1050 hertz. This is the Radio Shack 12-382. This is my first 382 I got in early 2022. I've had this thing for over a year. The tuner has died multiple times. This is an 08 version, I believe. No, this might be the 09. I actually think this is an 09. Looking at the serial earlier, I think it's an 09. But the tuner's died multiple times off of it. This is basically the upgrade to the 261. Has some... I love the siren on the 261s, 382s, 521s, and 262s. They all sound great. And this one, very fast responding menu.
The Charlotte metropolitan area on Monday, May 8th.
Good speaker quality. It's a very good radio. Very good same radio, that Radio Shack, except the tuner. That's the only thing. Also, bunch of floods. That's besides the point. I've been monitoring severe storms out there and moving across southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri, and I'm moving into Kentucky. But that's besides the point. But 382, solid radio, man. I'd pick one up if you can. Now the prices on these things can get very, very expensive, and I don't know why, but They're very good radios. Next is the 12-260, which is pretty much the same, except it has no saying because I don't know what the heck Radio Shack was thinking when they made these, but whatever. Same thing as the 12-093. Nothing very interesting about it. This is the older version, so these were made in 04. These were made later. Maybe, I think 08 those were made. These are 04s. So, my birthday year, 2004. Very good. I wouldn't say it's very good, but it's a nice 1050 hertz radio. Next one is the Radio Shack 12-259 Silver Edition, and Weather Radio Guru fixed this. I bought this in September. Tuner died. I had it out of service for months, and I shipped it to him. He fixed it. If you ever want a radio fixed or modded, Weather Radio Guru is the guy to ask. He's a legend. Trust me. He's really good at his job. I really like that he can finally fix the tuner issue.
Upper 80s. West winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Chance of rain 40%. Tuesday night, mostly clear.
259 is pretty good. Siren's pretty cool. There's really not much to it. It's just a nice little same radio. It does not have warning LEDs or watch or advisory, but the siren is pretty cool. Has a cool siren. You know, reception is okay. The other things, this thing will chew through batteries, so try to find a cord with that one. All right, next one is going to be my Recom. Just the Recom or 1650A, not the C, but the A. It has a pretty statement. That's besides the point. It has a pretty statement light, but it doesn't shine on the weekly test for some reason. It's an okay radio as far as rarity. It's accordingly it's 1-star rarity, but I think judging by what I've seen, it's about 1.5 stars, maybe 2. The menu is slower than the newer Recoms. The siren's not as loud. This is not the one with the high-low switch, as you can tell. But it does sound a pretty cool siren. It's different. The warning siren is different.
Highs in the mid-80s.
It has that background noise. I don't know why it has the background noise, but it does. It's a cool radio. It's definitely a cool collector's item. It's decently rare, so I'd recommend one if you could find it. Next is the BC370 CRS, and I've gone over this radio 2 times already. Again, fantastic scanner, AM and FM decoding. Really not much to say except that the reception's fantastic. The siren sounds amazing. This is a very rare radio indeed. Extremely rare. Maybe not extremely rare, but it's very rare to find. 2-star rarity. I love it personally.
Yeah. The normal high is 79. The record high is 96 degrees.
It has a very, very good reception to it. It's just fantastic all the way around. Next one is the Radio Shack 12-261. This is one of 3 that I own. This is the 04 version. This is my second 261 that I purchased. This one was also in late September. Again, 261s very similar to 262s. There are 2 different versions. There's the 04 and not versions, 2 different years. There's the 04 and then there's the 03. I'll get to my other ones later, but the 261, again, similar functions as the 382. It definitely has a slower response time. These do not have the tuner issue. The reception is fantastic, and it activates for everything, so I really like the 261s. The next one is the Midland, I almost said Radio Shack. This is no Radio Shack. It's a Midland WR10. And this has a really cool sounding siren. At least it's 1050. It has a really good sounding siren. It goes woo, whatever that is, during a weekly. It's fairly simple. Like, nothing to it. I love the siren on it, and I like the design because it has the M in the Midland logo. I think that's pretty cool. So, it's pretty cool. You know, I basically purchased it just for a different addition to the siren level in the collection. I really think it's a cool 1050 hertz. Anyway, that is all the radios that is on my desk so far. That is 10 radios. Now we move on to my dresser, which I went over earlier. And we'll start up here with the Radio Shack Pro, I think 405. And this one is a more recent one that I bought. I bought this one, it was early April. I love that this is first header. It's, even faster response on the first header than the 262s and the 521s. So I really like that this is first header. It's another really cool scanner. Again, you have all your features. You have D-pad, you have all the fire, ham radio, you have AM and FM. So again, it does a really cool job. The siren's also different. I really like it. The only issue with this thing is reception. If you don't have an antenna, it won't activate as much. And I've had this thing not activate a few times on me just because, but I really like it. It's a cool radio. The only thing that's weird is
Wednesday.
you hear that weird thing in the reception where, I don't know, it silences the broadcast for like a split second and then it goes back. I don't know why it does that, but it just does. It's a great radio. I highly recommend getting one. And the fact that it's first header is one of the reasons why I inclined me to get it. The next one is my Recomer 1630C. It's basically the lower end version of the R1650. No AM and FM, but the siren's loud. The menu's fairly easy to set up. It's a nice radio.
Sunny. Highs in the upper 80s. Saturday night.
It activates again for everything. I've had this one since 2020. So this one I've had. This was my 6th radio I had in my collection. It's one of the most recent editions. Not most recent. It's one of the older editions that I've had. So, you know, I hadn't owned a 1630 since 2020, and then I decided, you know, why don't I buy one early? And that's what kind of sparked me into collecting more. Was getting the 1630 back in 2020, and it's a good radio. I love the siren, the features. It's just a pretty reliable radio. Anyway, the next one is the Pocket radio, which is the HH50. This is another new addition since my last collection.
At Greenville, Spartanburg.
KJY 85. There's WXL7.
The Charlotte, North Carolina climate summary for this evening.
And it has alert mode, which it eats batteries on alert mode, and it has off. The siren, again, it's very similar to the WR10, but it's more high-pitched. I'm not going to play it now. I usually keep this thing off until there's, like, alerts, like an event, severe weather event going on. So it usually just stays there. It's a pretty cool radio. Reception's not terrible, but it's not great. It's just a cool little pocket radio. If you're on, like, a budget or something, you just want a little pocket radio. It's a good radio. I'd recommend it to some people that, you know, just want a simple radio to use. It's very easy. The only thing I wish it had is if you could manually switch the channels and not have to hit the test rescan in order to switch between channels. That's the only thing gripe I have about it. The next one is Midland WR120, but this is not my original. This is the 2020 version that I got in December, and it arrived in early January. This is the 120B, not the EZ. This is the newer version, so it has the newer same codes like the Storm Surge, not Storm Surge, the Winter Storm or Snow Squall warning and the Blue Alert. That's what these have. So they have the newer same codes, and they're faster, they're more reliable.
Yeah, it was mostly.
And a very bright backlight as well. So I really like that. And the 120s, they're awesome radios. I mean, the classics of collectors. They're absolute classics. Extremely reliable overall. So WR120. This is the second 261 that I own. This is also an 04, so this is the second one. But this is the one that I owned first, and this was October 2021 when I bought this one. And again, same as the other 261, so not much to say about it. Here is my trusty Radio Shack 12-996, and I've been looking around for one of these for a while, and I finally picked one up back in March. So again, this radio, I love it a lot. Not only is the speaker incredible quality, but it's a touchscreen.
Partly cloudy. Lows in the lower 6.
It's a touchscreen. It has AM and FM. It's the only touchscreen radio that I've ever seen in my entire life. As far as weather radio, it's like incredible. It activates for everything. The speaker quality, it's tied between this and the Sangene for the best speaker quality I've heard on the radio. So this one If you can find one that's not super overpriced, I would pick one up, probably. It's a very fantastic radio. I have no complaints about the 996. Recommend one. Next is the Solar Crank CR1009. This is, again, a newer radio that I bought last month. And this is 1050 hertz. The siren is unbelievably loud on this thing. Absolutely blistering loud. And has AM and FM, has the solar crank. No, it is a solar crank, but it has a hand crank. It has a really cool flashlight that comes out of the top. And it's just a fairly good 1050 hertz radio. It's a fairly cheap one too. So these are not very expensive. They're not going to bust your wallet to obtain. And they do the job. They're very nice. So, I mean, is it the great? It's not same. I wish they had like a LCD screen right here that would tell you the alert that you got, but it's just whatever. So for 1050 hertz, it's a very good radio. Overall, good radio to take with you on vacation or on a hike or something like that. So I'd recommend that one for something like that. More outdoors events, but it works for a collector's item as well. Next is the trusty, brand new Midland WR300 version 8. If you wonder where my V5 Deluxe is, it's on my dresser. But this is the version 8. Yoshi Fan also has this radio. He has the V8, which is it's a fantastic radio. The only complaint I have is the menu lag. That'd be about it, but it has fantastic reception. The siren test is slightly different. It's a sped up version of the WR120. And different button beeps, as you can tell. It's literally a sped up version of a 120. I mean, it sounds really cool. Again, Yoshi Fan has this radio. It's one of his best collector's items, and completely understand why. Now, how did I obtain this? I won it at an auction that was on eBay, and so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bid for it because I don't have a V8. I was like, why not? And they're decently rare to find without having to pay a gargantuan price. They're not the easiest thing in the world to obtain, but I highly recommend trying to pick up a version 8 if you can. So, I love the version 8. I just recently got this radio not too long ago, so far, first impressions are very good. Behind it is a radio that hasn't gone off for an alert yet, and I, again, just recently bought this. It was the Jensen JEP, I think, 725. Again, it's 1050 hertz. It's the knockoff version of the SFA 1150, so it doesn't decode for sane, but it is 1050 hertz and it lights up red around those LEDs that go around it. It lights up red, which is super cool. I haven't seen it do it yet because the weekly test is on Wednesday, and I got this, I think it was Thursday last week, so I've had it for a while. Not a while. I've had it recently, and no alert yet. So, it's cool. It has AM and FM, and the backlight's pretty bright. As far as what I've heard about it, we'll see if it activates on the weekly. So, overall, pretty cool. Here we go. 08500RX. This was my first radio I ever purchased. If y'all didn't know that before, this is the first radio that I've ever bought. Back in June. Well, I didn't buy it. My dad said it was the family radio. This is back in June of 2012. I don't think I need to explain much about it. It has a really cool scroll. No siren except on a warning. It only sound a very loud beep on a warning, but that's about it. I love it because this is my first radio. It has a lot of special places in my heart for, this being my first. The next one is the first WR100. And I went over it last video, which is the version 4. Again, not much to say about the V4, except, well, it's a version 4. I mean, what's so special about it?
Transmitter is serving Rock Hill and the
monitoring KHC27 because it activates on KHC27. It's version 4. I like it. It has, normal WR100 features, so there's nothing super. It's nothing super rare. It's a cool WR100. Oh yes, nostalgia. That beautiful siren test. The next one is another 1050 hertz radio, and I like this one personally. It's the Midland ER50. Great DXer, if I'm not going to lie. If you want to DX AM and FM stations on the go or whatever, this thing is absolutely fantastic, the ER50. It has one of the brightest flashlights I've ever freaking seen on a radio. Great DXing radio. It can be powered on multiple different ways with a hand crank, USB charging, and solar. So it's super versatile. The one behind it is the EAR 210, which is basically kind of like the ER50. You have the ER10 as well. I don't have that. But the ER 210, again, extremely bright backlight, and again, pretty good DXer. ER50 has better reception. ER310, which I don't have, also has even better reception than this. But this is a great budget radio for sure to take with you on the go. I really like this one. The ER50 and the ER210. They're both fantastic. I mean, for a weekly test, I love the siren on them. Although they can be annoying, I really like it. Next is Radio Shack 12-250 that I got from Weather Radio Guru, actually. I actually bought this on eBay. He was selling an RGB 12-250, and I was like, you know what, why don't I buy it? I love the backlight on that thing, you know, changing multiple colors. This one, self-explanatory. It's a very vintage Radio Shack radio. It's like the 74-200, but Radio Shack in different form. Again, not much to say. This one has a speaker issue, so the siren's not half as loud.
Eyes on the upper.
But it functions. It activates, which I like. And, you know, it's overall very good radio. So, all right, that's all the radios on my dresser, or on my bookcase. Now we go onto the wall, and none other than the Radio Shack 12-262. This is my first 262. Actually, this is my second 262, because my first 262 has been put out of service for a number of reasons. This one is an 08, so it is the tuner-prone 262. I know Yoshi fan. Both of his 262s have suffered from a dead speaker and a tuner. Fortunately, only one of my 262s have died, and that's because of a dead decoder, not the tuner. And this is an 08, so the tuner could die, but it sounds perfect. It's been in service for a year now. So,
A chance of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon. Highs in the upper 80s.
there's no guarantee how long this is going to survive. But the 262 is a classic. It's got great features. It's decent at DXing, and I love that it's first header. That's another thing I like about it. The one above it is the 12-521 with the bad display. This is a firmware issue. The radio itself functions perfectly fine.
Area and the surrounding Piedmont of the Carolinas.
521s also have the tuner issue, but this is a 2012, and the 2012s do not have the tuner problem, which is nice. Again, it's basically the upgraded version of the 262. Again, it's fantastic. First header. Speaker quality is vastly better than the 262 as well. And the menu is very fast response. The only thing I wish they had on this was a menu select button instead of separating the select button from the menu button. Again, another weird Radio Shack quirk that I don't know why they do that. Radio Shack, I question you sometimes. Seriously. The next one this is on my dresser is the Midland NWR 11. And again, this is a pretty rare radio, as it is. I like it a lot. It's 1050 hertz. The siren's really cool. It has AM and FM. The one issue about this thing is the reception. So the reception's not good. It's only good on here because it's away from other cables. Well, it's near other cables, but it's not like surrounded by them. If there's a cable near the antenna, it completely screws the reception. But I love this thing. It activates because it's 1050. It's not the same. It's 1050, but it activates. It's fairly good. You know, it's a rare. These are expensive. It is decently rare, but it is expensive. So I'd recommend trying to pick one up if you can. WR11, very nice. Next is the WX1, not Radio Shack. Gosh dang it, frick radio, daggone Radio Shacks. In my mind, this is the First Alert WX150. A pretty self-explanatory radio. They have the WX200, which is the rare version of this, but
West winds around 5 miles.
Great reception. Again, the siren is a really weird siren, but I like that this thing has alert history as well. It's a pretty good radio. The WX150. I don't have much to say about it, except it's fairly good. Next is my version 5 Deluxe. So you saw my version 8 right there, V5 Deluxe, which for some stupid reason it didn't activate for its weekly test, and I don't know why. It just didn't. Last warning it received was a bunch of floods by GSP on Friday the 28th. Like 5 flood warnings. It was out of nowhere.
Around 5 miles an hour.
This is my 3rd radio I ever collected. So this one I got on Christmas Day of 2016. And it activates for everything. It's basically a version 5, but enhanced the performance 10 times, and that's basically a version 5 Deluxe. It activates for everything 99.9% of the time. So for WR300, the Deluxe is where to go. Screw the version 5s and 4s. You want the Deluxe. If you want rarity, go for the version 1. But if you want, very reliable radio, just in general, maybe you're not a collector. If you want a really reliable radio, go for the 300s, especially the Deluxe model. The next one that I have is the Max Digital. This is basically the same as the Capello, except it has a silver strip that goes across. Same siren, same menu. The only issue here, look at that. The display is going to utter garbage. And it's a typical problem with the Capello and the Max Digital. This has AM and FM. Reception's very good. I like it.
Eastern Daylight Time.
This is another radio I got this year. I like it. It does the job. It activates. The siren's nice. Not much to say about it. All right, next one is going to be the Eton SolarLink FR370. Not the BC370 CRS, but 2 radios have the same name with 370 in them. This is a very cool radio. One, great DXer for not only AM and FM stations, but just weather band stations as well. It can pick up quite a few stations. Now in my room it can't, but if I go outside, it'll pick up a lot of stations. It's very good.
Northeast winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Wednesday night, mostly.
I'd rank it an S-tier DXing radio just because of how solid of a performer it is. Against multi-purpose, you have charging from solar, you also have the hand crank, and it's a flashlight as well. I mean, you cannot go wrong with the Eton SolarLink. You cannot go wrong with it. It's fantastic. Here is a pretty rare WX167, which is basically the non-AM and FM version of the 268. The 268 is even rare. This is 2-star rarity. The cool part about this radio is it has a flip screen. I think that's pretty cool, just like the 521 and 262s have the flip screen. I think that's pretty cool. This is a pretty good performer. Although these do have many issues, I got this brand new in box back in December.
Afternoon. Highs in the upper 80s. Chance of rain 40%.
These often have decoder problems, but they're really good. The siren's very loud. It's really good. So I'd recommend trying to buy one. These are pricey, but if you can find one, pick one up. They're pretty nice. As a whole, I like it. Next is the 08510, which this one is basically the predecessor to the 08500 RX, and this is the low-pitched version, not the high-pitched, because on the weekly test, I don't even freaking hear the thing, hardly at all. And I have weekly tests enabled.
Lows in the lower 60s. West winds around 5 miles an hour.
I like this thing a lot. I also won, this is another auction that I won, and I got this thing for a very good price of $26. Compared to the prices they are now. Again, basically it's the same functions as the 08500 RX. There's really nothing different about it except the coloration and the fact that it actually sounds the sirens for each type of alert. So that's nice. But besides that, it's pretty much the same. And it's rare too. It's pretty rare. Not super rare, it's pretty rare. Next is a Classics, the 74200. This is my 13th weather radio. And again, The menu's a pain in the nuts. Besides that, it's fairly good.
Sunny. Highs around 80.
Again, all these are monitoring KHC-27. If you didn't know that, all of them. This is vintage. So this is a version 6. I think there's a version 8 and a version 5, but this is a version 6. It's okay. It's pretty reliable as far as it goes off and whatnot, but Redicus, I swear, man, you keep beeping, I'm gonna knock you out. But 74200. If you can get past the menu being a pain in the balls, the thing's heavily reliable, and it can be a first header, especially on the weekly test. I've had this thing go off on the first header quite a few times. Next is the beige 12-259. I bought this one right after my 5 other 259. My silver died because I learned that the tuner doesn't die on these, the beige, which were made in 2004.
The current time is 12.
I like this a lot. Again, it's basically the same as the beige, but just not beige. Same as the silver, but it's beige. And this thing, again, activates for everything. I love it. Very nice vintage radio. The radio behind it is another WR100. Wait, another WR100? Yes, I have 6 of these in service. 6 WR100s, 5 different versions. This is a version 5, and you're probably wondering, how do you own a version 5 and it's not dead yet? You want to know why? Because this has the 70 serial number on it, which these tend to last a little longer than the newer ones.
It was partly cloudy.
I bought this in September, and it's been working flawlessly ever since. So, I mean, I would avoid the version 5s, but hey, it's a version 5. If you can find one that doesn't have the tuner issue, they're very reliable radios, no question about it. But try to get an older version that doesn't have these tuner problems. But if you do have a tuner problem, ship it to Land and he can fix it. So that's the V5. Nothing super special. Classic WR100 sounding beeps and siren. Everyone knows that. Now, you move on to my favorite part, which is the table. And I recently got some LED lights that go around as well that add some nostalgia. So, decided to, put some LEDs in the collection because I needed that. I never had LED lights before. I thought I'd do that. We're going to start in the very back this time with 08550W, I believe. It's the red Accurite handheld. If I can move over here. And again, it has the same quirks as any other Accurite with the scroll, but this one's just red, black with an orange LCD screen. I don't have much to say about it, but I like it. This was another radio I got in September. It's decent overall. I'd recommend it if you can find one. They're pretty common, but it's not the best radio, but it'll do. The next one, if I can move over here, these antennas, man, is my AlertWorks EAR10 Black Edition. This is the original EAR10, the original version. You have the WH, which is white. This is just EAR10. I love the EAR10. The siren, it's incredible. Just hearing it.
Lows in the lower 60s.
Love that siren. First header. Normally, though, on WXL70, because it's 162.475, it activates on the second, which is interesting. But I love the ER10. They're fairly common. They are a little bit pricey, but fairly common to pick up. Next is the 07262. I got this brand new in box, so hopefully this thing lasts me a long time. I like this this year in particular, because they don't die quite as often as the 08s.
Thursday, sunny. Highs around 80.
Great reception, and nothing much to say about it because I already went over the 262 last time, but I like this this 262. As my Capello says check reception, because for some stupid reason you didn't activate for your daggum weekly test, and I don't know why. You just didn't.
60s.
And I don't know if it was because his external antenna's on top of the freaking weather snooze. I don't know. Just didn't go off. But the Capello, again, it's the same as the Max Digital. So, again, not much to say about it, but same as the Max Digital. It's basically the knockoff brand. I'll give the Capello this. The reception is fantastic. You want to DX stations, even AM and FM, this is a great DXing radio because of the reception. But the siren and all that's the same. The next is the Radio Shack 12-991. Again, this is the red logo edition. There's a white and a red. Apparently the red is rarer. So it's fairly rare. But the 991 is basically a 993, which we're going to get to in a minute. But it's a pill, just not blue, and it doesn't have Viagra after it. It's just black pill. The siren is the same drunken police siren as the 519 and the rest of them. But this is a great DXing weather radio. I love it a lot.
78%.
This was my 11th radio that I collected. It was the 991. I've had it since 2021. So I've had this thing for 2 years now. And it's really cool. Now, they are rare to find. They are expensive as well. Luckily, this one only cost me about $40. So that's about what that thing should cost. Probably should cost like $35, to be honest. I'd recommend trying to pick up a 991. I like them a lot. They're great DXers. So, yeah. Next one is the Midland HH54 VP, but this is the version 16, not the 15. This is the 16. This is the one with the certain style button beeps, the more classic sounding.
Durham and 73 at Fayetteville.
This is not the early version 16, which Antonio has not shipped yet. That one is the rarest. The V14s are the rarest, but I'd say the early V16 is the second rarest HH that you can possibly obtain. This is a traditional 16 HH. So, as the high-pitched beeps, but I really like the HH. It's a fantastic handheld, again, good DXer. It's just a classic. You can't go wrong with the HH. Next is the possessed brick of the Zone Guard Plus. Nothing much to say about it, except it's a brick. That's all it pretty much is. It's a brick that has one of the weirdest sounding sirens I've ever heard in my entire dagnab life. So, it's just strange. I mean, I like it. It sometimes activates for same, but sometimes activates for 1050. It just depends. That thing is weird. I like it personally. It has two little alert modules, one there and one there, that also add to the chaos that ensues when there's a warning issue. So overall, it's okay. All right. It also has AM and FM, but it's a goofy brick. The next is the RGB modded 382, and this is again Weather Radio Guru. This is the second 382 I purchased, and the tuner died a while back, and it kind of went in and out, and I was like, all right, fine, I'm gonna ship it to Landon. He fixed it, and he modded the backlight, which I think this is the first modded 382 that I've probably ever seen him do. So it's really cool what Guru can do with the backlights, you know. It's really cool. So again, it's the same as the other 382, except the tuner's fixed and it works. And it has a cool backlight. So best of both worlds. The next is the Midland WR 120 RGB. This is my original 120. I got this. This is my second weather radio I've ever owned. This is the WR 120. But this is the EZ. And he modded the backlight to this one as well. I shipped this one to him.
It is serving the Piedmont of the Carolinas.
So this 120 was due for a makeover. The backlight was starting to get more dim, and he replaced it, and he made it look really cool. Again, for my second radio, I was like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. So again, real big thanks to Guru for doing that for me there. The next is the Eton Zone Guard, just the traditional, which is definitely better than the Plus, but the Zone Guard, I like it. There are two different kinds of Zone Guards. You have the one that has yellow for advisory, green for watch, and red for warning. This is orange for watch, green for advisory, and red for warning. So it's that version. This is probably the more common version. I think this is the newer version, Zone Guard. I don't know, but again, just like the Zone Guard Plus, it's a brick. The next one is a radio I've sought after for a while. It's the 03261. Yes, this is the third 261 that I own. What makes this one different is because it has a statement light, and it has the beeps for the weekly test. The beep, beep, beep has that for the weekly test. And it's a great addition for, weekly. And I really like the 03261. I looked after one for a long time, and I saw one on Macari. Antonio sent me the link. I saw it on Macari and was like, I gotta get that. It's rare. It's 2-star rarity, 2.5. So it's fairly rare radio to find. These are not common at all. And I finally got one. All right, the next radio here is the gosh dang it, dude. The AlertWorks EAR10 WH. And just like the original, the traditional AlertWorks, the WH, and again, the siren's not quite as loud, has the same features. This one has alert blocking as well. It's rare now. The WH is rare, surprisingly, which is kind of shocks me, but I like it. It activates for everything. This was my 5th radio that I've ever collected, was the WH. I'd recommend trying to find one if you can. They're fairly common. So if you can find one, they were fairly common. They're a little bit more rare now, but I try to recommend buying one. The next is the second 521 without the display. It's also a 2012, which explains why the tuner hasn't died.
Rain 40%.
Same thing as the other one. The next is going to be my Redicus TR625. Don't really have to explain this one too much, except it's basically the knockoff version of the 120. How appropriate to have the 120 and its knockoff version right next to it. The firmware is goofy. The siren is extremely loud. It activates for everything. I mean, Redicus, for their first ever NWR, they tried, but overall just didn't work out for them very well, did it? It's okay. It's fairly cheap to purchase, but it's just okay. It's nothing fantastic. The next one is the Midland WR100. We're not there yet, okay? I keep slipping up with this. The 400, which these were made in 2017. And they're version 1s, 2s, and I think 3s. I'm not sure. I don't know what version this is. This is probably a version 2. But the 400 is a very nice radio. It's not worth the price that they're listed at. They're usually worth, I'd say about maximum 50. Like brand new, you're talking 50. But normal price for a 400 probably should be, I would say, $30 to $40. I like this radio a lot because number of reasons. AM and FM is fantastic. The reception,
71 at Greensboro, 70 at Raleigh, Durham, and 70.
Again, top 5 in speaker quality for any radio I've ever owned. Love this thing. The siren's great. It's just a great all-rounder. Can't go wrong with it. The 400. Don't spend too much money on these, but I tell you, if you want a super reliable radio, get the 400. It's awesome. All right, here we go. We're going to go on to the Recommerce 1650C. I got this one in September, the same time I got my other 261. Again, just like the Recommerce 1650A, it has not much to say about it. It's just
5 to 10.
It's a of a radio for sure. The cool part about the Recoms, again, especially just any Recom, is the fact that you have alert block. You have alert memory, so you can go back and review all the alerts that you've got. So that's really cool. I really do like the recoms. They did a really good job at designing them. Not much to say about it. The next radio is a very rare radio that I've explained. I've gone into the story. I don't need to explain it again. It's the Unit NWX100, the Bearcat WX100. In terms of price, it sucks. The price, again, very expensive. In terms of the reliability and the features, it's fairly good. The siren on this thing sounds really freaking cool. Really like the siren. That's about the main reason why I like this. The other thing is the antenna is extremely long, and the reception is great. So
Cloudy. Lows in the mid-60s.
and this is rare, fairly rare, but the price sucks. So if you can get one for a reasonable price. Don't buy one that like I did for $200. Don't do that. So that's just one thing I gotta say about the WX100. I like it. It's overrated, but it's a cool radio. So the next is the Midland HH4 VP version 15. So besides 16, you have the 15. Here's how you can tell the button beeps. Self-explanatory.
Reservations for the Charlotte metropolitan area on Tuesday.
Just like any other HH, it's a vintage HH. It's classic. Can't go wrong with it. Over here we have my running Snail MD319 kit version, which is the 02, but really it was made in 2021, I believe. So these are newer. These don't crash like the version 17s and whatever. So this is the newer version of the MD319.
Rock Hill, it was partly cloudy. The temperature was 65 degrees.
The reception's not fantastic, and that's because the antenna is so tiny. She would not be pleased with that antenna at all. Small antenna, reception's just kind of mediocre. The siren is just wacky as crap. The radio, as it is, activates very well. It activates second header sometimes, which is interesting. But it's okay. This one does not have AM and FM, which makes it different than the other MD319s. That's what I'll say. But overall, it's fairly good. Over here is my Sangean CL100. Oh my goodness. Extremely reliable. This is the Public Alert Edition, which I think is, I don't know if it's rarer than the traditional. I don't know. But the CL100 has the best speaker quality out of any radio I've ever heard. It just does.
Chance of rain 40%. Tuesday night, mostly clear. Lows in the upper 50s.
Impeccable speaker quality. And it activates for everything. The reception's amazing. The AM and FM band works fantastic. It's just flat out really good. It's very good features. It's just fantastic. I mean, best speaker quality I've ever heard on a radio, period. I mean, the 996 is probably second in line. Then the 400, and then the 519. That'd be my list. I love the reception and the speaker quality. I highly recommend getting one. Even if you're not a collector, the Sangean is just incredible. The next one over here is a very rare radio that Antonio listed that I was able... Check reception. Very rare radio, which is the Midland NWR300 version 1 that has the statement line. He messaged me and said, hey, you want a V1? I was like, sure. And I was able to purchase this thing. And it's hooked up to an external antenna because that's the only reason why it'll activate. As far as reliability, the version 1s are not that reliable. As far as the menu with the overlapping of the stations, and it's not great for DXing. The reception's just okay. This is strictly more for collecting, in my opinion.
The current time.
With an external antenna, it's fantastic. The reception's good. Without it, it's not as good.
Daylight time observation.
It's a vintage radio. I love it. The 300 version 1. These are extremely rare to find. The listings do come up from now and then, so sometimes someone's able to get them, but they're hard to find, but they're very great. It's nostalgic. I love that it shows statement on the weekly test, and it, for the most part, it activates. So I really appreciate Antonio for allowing me to have it. The next radio, which I recently got just after one day that Montgomery County EAS got his 993, another one was listed for an incredible $30. That's the cheapest I've seen a 993 in a long time. And these are now, I don't know how, but these are now incredibly rare to find. These are 3-star rarity. I cannot believe how these are this rare now, but they are. I'll tell you what, the 996, the 991, it has the same internals and firmware as like the 991. Same siren. It's a fantastic DXer. It's very good at DXing. The speaker quality is great, and these were made in 2012, so they don't have the tuner issue.
A chance of showers and thunderstorms until midnight. Lows in the upper 50s.
I have it on KHC 27 currently. The 993 is a really cool NWR, and I'm very lucky to be able to purchase one when I did. I saw it on eBay and I was like, immediately got it. So they're very rare, but if you can find one, get it, because it's a fantastic DX. It's just across the board, it's amazing. So 993, really love this thing. And it's got a lot of cool features. The next one is just as rare, and that is the Midland WR 301. Now, I already stated the backstory on how I obtained this. The tuner died because it's a version 5. Shipped it to Landon. He fixed it. Again, the 301 is a very rare radio indeed.
It's in the mid-80s.
It works fantastic. It activates for everything. It's not as quite as reliable maybe as a version 8 or whatever, but because it's a 301, the mossy oak camo is a super cool thing about it. I mean, Midland and Mossy Oak basically did a collaboration, and then they made a radio out of it. It's really freaking cool. It's rare to find, extremely rare to find. The listings, again, come up here and there. It's kind of like a black and silver. You just don't know. I really like it. You know, I'm very fortunate to be able to own one of these. So, and massive, again, I can't thank Landon enough for what he does. You know, fixing this thing. Because this thing was a little bit expensive. It cost me quite a bit of money to be able to get it. About $85 to be able to purchase this thing. So, it was a lot of money. But well worth it, in my opinion. Next radio is one of my favorite radios, besides the 301. And it's 12-519. You can't go wrong with it. The 519, it's awesome. It has, again, like any other radio, it has AM and FM. It's a giant brick, basically. It's a first header. They have a third header and a first header. This is the first header, which the first headers were made in 09. So if you're able to tell the difference, 09, 10, and 11 were thirds. This is a first header. This has some really cool features. It has Skywarn. I haven't figured out how to program that. WX.
Was partly cloudy.
AM and FM, and you can plug an auxiliary port to it. It even has that. Speaker quality is great. I've had this thing for over a year now. Almost a year and a half. So they're fairly reliable. They don't die on you like some others. And I love it. Nothing wrong with the 519. You cannot go wrong with the 519. You just cannot. The next radio is one of the rarest radios that I have besides the ones I just mentioned. That is the Midland WR100 version 2. And I already gave a rundown on the backstory of this radio as well. But the version 2, again, classic Midland WR100. It's a Twitty statement light WR100. It's the first Twitty statement light WR100 that I've owned, which I like. Version 2, you really can't go wrong with version 2. Again, no public alert logo, Has the same, it has monitor, and a PWDY statement light. And that's how you can tell it's a V2.
Wednesday.
I fixed the reception on this thing with an auxiliary cable that basically travels to my window, fixes the reception, goes off about everything now.
Sunny. Highs in the upper 70s.
It does have channel bleed through like my version 5, 301 and whatever, but I really like the version 2. Again, they're fairly rare to come across. The listings again come up now and then, but the version 2 is fantastic. Next to it is a radio I've dreamed about having for a very long time. No, it is not a black and silver, but it basically is the same thing as a black and silver. It is the Midland WR100 version 1, white. So this, again, seller sold 6 of them. I was able to pick one up. I picked up the first one that came up, which was about $25. The rest went for $30, and then one sold for $150, but this other guy sent an offer for $50 and they got it. But that's besides the point. The version 1, I never thought I would be able to own one of these. I really didn't. Since that listing, there's not been a single version 1 on eBay that has sold since. These are just insanely rare to find. And the fact that that seller sold 6 of them made it easy to obtain.
The surrounding Piedmont of the Carolinas. The current time is 12:39 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
Again, with the V1, you have the same, no dots in between the same, no public alert logo, again, statement light, and the backlight is teal, and that's what makes it different. There's the V2, and then you can see the difference there. Again, the version 1, I love the version 1. Now, the only issue is the reception is absolutely terrible, so you need an external antenna to be able to get this thing's full potential, and it activates better than the version 2 does, which is interesting. Really like this thing. It's very cool to own all 5 versions of the 100. So if you can find a V2 or a V1, go for it. I've been hunting for a black and silver for ages now, but this is a good substitute for a black and silver. They call this thing the Holy Grail for a reason. It's a great radio. If you can find one, pick one up. Now we go to the final 4 radios, and this is the second version 2 that I bought. So yes, I own 3 WR100s with the statement light. This one I won at a local auction. I've explained it before, but I like, version 2. It's cool to have another WR100 with the statement light. So same other as the other version 2. It's a mid 2003. So it activates for everything. It's a great version 2. Next is the Midland WR30. This thing, like the 74-200, the menu is a little bit questionable. The siren sounds exactly like a Recom, but Recom radios were made after Midland, so this has the same siren. So did Recom rip off Midland, or did Midland rip off Recom? Who did what with the siren? I want to know. But the WR30, reception's good. It's definitely better than the 74-200 because 1, the reception's better, 2, the speaker quality's better, and 3, it beeps for the test, which is super cool. And it's just vintage. It's a fairly good radio. Nothing I can complain about. It activates. The one above it's 74-210. Again, just same as the WR30, except no beeps for the test, and the speaker quality is terrible. I'll admit, the speaker quality is way worse. Like, if you hear this.
Area. Thursday. Sunny.
Okay, it's questionable. You hear this? Look how bad this sounds.
Lows in the upper 50s. Friday.
Its tuner sounds like it just took a dump. But it's basically just the speaker, apparently. Again, it activates, but it's night and day. So if you can, pick up the WR30 because it's just better all around because of the speaker. But, I mean, if you 74-210, Yoshi fan 74-210 for some reason took a dump. And that's just the age probably. So, I really feel for him for some of his radios not cooperating because it's a pain when they don't. I understand that. But 74-210, it's decent if it works. That's all I'll say. It's decent if it works. Here's my last rating. And yes, we finally got through them all.
And this is the version 3 WR100. Again, nostalgic version 3. You know, this is a classic. Siren test is basically the same quirks as the V4 and the V5. It's more reliable than both of them. One, the tuner doesn't die, and then two, it's just better. It activates for everything. It's just better. So that's basically it. All right, that concludes the collection. Those are all my radios. Am I going to collect any more? Nope. I said that before, but I mean it this time, unless I see a black and silver or a WX268 or something stupidly rare like that, or maybe something else. I don't know. I probably ain't going to be collecting much anymore. It's got to end somewhere. And I'm running out of room. So I said it before. Really, I got to stop at some point. But that's it. How many radios is it in service? It is a total of 66. With one more on the way, that's San Antonio's, but I ordered that a long time ago. So that doesn't count. It's 66. So that includes this one. I know this video is going to be long just like the other one, but you know, I wanted to go over everything, just have an updated collection video on everything. And I hope everyone enjoyed this. I will be trying to capture many watches and warnings this summer. We'll see what it sounds like. Thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy. And see y'all in the next one.